Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, March the 14th, 2024. I'd like to start by thanking everyone for subscribing to my channel because I just noticed that I have gone over 3,000 subscribers. So I've been doing this channel for just over a year, and I know that 13,000 subscribers in the grand scheme of things isn't much, but it seems to be a good start. And when you're doing YouTube channels, you do have to be patient. A year is apparently just the beginning. But it makes me nostalgic for that time when I had 0 subscribers. The great thing about having 0 subscribers is that you can do what you like. I can put out a video safe in the knowledge that no one's going to watch it, or maybe one person is going to watch it. But now I do have 3,000 subscribers, and yes, I would like to thank you for that. I suppose someone is listening to me. It's like that line, what is it, from that first Alien film, no one can hear you scream in space. That was perhaps the beginning. It might have been nice having no one watching me because I could put out whatever I liked. But then if no one can hear me scream, that makes me feel perhaps alone in this vast ocean. But anyway, thanks again for subscribing. If you are not subscribed and you enjoy my videos, then of course I would be very grateful if you were to subscribe. And yeah, if you like this video, yes, I would be happy if you were to press the like button, wherever that might be. Okay, so as far as my topic for today is concerned, well, yesterday I talked about Princess Catherine. I had talked about her before, but I felt that yesterday I was really able to sort of get to grips with her horoscope, maybe because I was trying to look at her chart in a sort of quite in-depth way, and I was considering the possibility that there might be a problem. And today I want to talk about her husband, Prince William. Yes, I've talked about him before, but clearly he's getting some criticism now. I was reading an article in the Daily Mail which referred to his him being ungentlemanly. That I think that photograph that she supposedly put out, which showed some editing. Apparently he had taken this photograph and he just let his wife take the blame. And so, this is a suggestion that his conduct has been ungentlemanly. I'd love to show you the article in the Daily Mail. The trouble with the Daily Mail is if you use the Daily Mail website, your computer tends to freeze, so I wouldn't be able to run this video and show you the Daily Mail website. I don't know, it's pretty bloated, at least it is on my computer. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I want to talk about Prince William. I want to try to work out what's going on in his horoscope, and I also want to look at the marriage chart. I mean, it's always important to look at that. This is a marriage which may or may not be in trouble, but the marriage chart is certainly a good place to start. But before I do all that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Thursday, March the 14th, 2024. Now, top right, that's Prince William, and I'll be talking about him later. But first of all, I want to look at the astrology for today. So this chart is set for noon, New York time, March 14th, 2024. I've gone for New York simply because it's convenient. The moon is still in Taurus. You can see at noon in New York, the moon is at 2331 Taurus, and it's making a conjunction to Uranus. So moon in Taurus, pretty much the same as yesterday. The emphasis is on stability. Moon in Taurus is it's in an earth sign. We want things to stay the same. We are very much in tune with our material environment, and we expect things to go in a particular way. After all, Taurus is a fixed sign, yet the moon is conjunct Uranus. That can shake things up. So some of us might find that disturbances going on around us are slightly annoying, but maybe it's us ourselves that are causing the disturbance. Perhaps we're being stubborn. We insist on getting our way, regardless of what happens. Or we may find that it's someone else insisting on getting our way, and just refusing to compromise. Refusal to compromise could be a big deal, especially as the moon is square Mars. Moon square Mars is quite an angry combination, and it triggers that Mars square Uranus. So there is an aspect between Mars and Uranus. It's starting to fade. I think it was exact over the weekend, but it's starting to break up. But the moon, because it's now making the conjunction to Uranus and a square to Mars, the moon is bringing that square back into focus. So a lot of what I said about Mars square Uranus starts to apply again. Mars square Uranus can be quite a dangerous combination. It can be about violence. It can be about people insisting that they get their way, and just absolutely not caring about the damage that such persistence causes. We do have to be careful. Do we really want to be the stubborn ones? Now, if it is a real matter of principle that's really important to you, then sure, be stubborn. Don't compromise. Stick to your guns. But is it worth it? Are you dealing with something that really is important to you? Or maybe you're dealing with something peripheral, but doesn't matter. In which case, my advice would be to compromise. Also, we need to be careful with machinery. This was a warning I gave when I was talking about Mars square Uranus a few days ago, but the thing is, the moon is bringing it back into focus. So we do have to be sort of extra careful playing with machinery. I don't know, whatever that machinery is. I don't know. I just borrowed someone's log splitter. I've no idea how a log splitter works. I suppose I have to find out. But I'm assuming that a log splitter has the potential to cause you a lot of damage once you plug it in. That's a good Mars square Uranus thing to be doing, playing around with a log splitter and not really knowing how it works. Who knows what damage it could cause to myself and my environment. So probably I should steer clear of the log splitter today. Maybe I should leave it a few days, let this Mars square Uranus really break up. So that is something to consider. Also, Mercury is semi-square Mars. So Mercury is at 8 Aries. Mars is at 23 Aquarius. So they are 45 degrees apart. So that really brings Mercury and Mars together. And it's really about being careful what we say and what we think. Some of us may be verbally aggressive with Mercury semi-square Mars. I mean, semi-square is 45. It's an eighth of the circle. Remember the cake analogy. So 45 degrees. If you cut a cake into 8 equal parts, each of those parts is going to be 45 degrees. It's half a square, and it is a tense aspect, a semi-square. So, Mars may be how we're trying to assert ourselves, but it may be a struggle to get the words out. We want to tell people how we think, how we feel, and we might be quite angry about it. Again, be careful what we say. Is it necessary to be so angry? Is it necessary to show our irritation? And even if we don't say anything, internally we might feel stress. That something needs to give. Just something's not right. So that stress is going to be there. So there could be agitation. We could find ourselves pacing. So this Mercury semi-square Mars, maybe somewhat problematic. On the other hand, the Moon is moving towards a sextile with the Sun. That maybe makes up for everything. Moon sextile Sun is a fortunate aspect. It is good for the life force. It's good for inner harmony. Regardless of everything, regardless of others, all the tension around us, we can find harmony. We can find a certain sense of oneness with the world around us, and so that's something we can do. Now, I've talked about this Mercury semi-square Mars, in quite a negative light, but I should point out that Mercury is conjunct the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. You can see on this chart, there's Venus, 3 degrees Pisces, there's Jupiter at 13 Taurus. So the sign between Pisces and Taurus is Aries, and in fact Mercury is exactly conjunct the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. And that also means that Mars is making a semi-square to the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. So we've got this Mercury-Mars conjunction on the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. That is a major mitigating factor. Venus and Jupiter are the two fortunate planets. Jupiter is the greater benefic, Venus is the lesser benefic. It's a fortunate combination. So if we make a real effort to be positive and happy, however agitated we are, that may be the solution. If we're feeling agitated, we need to be positive. I know I'm sometimes a bit negative in my interpretations compared with perhaps other astrologers. I don't go around telling people to be positive all the time. I think my therapy, I'm not in therapy, I haven't been in therapy for decades, but I remember my therapist said something like, people who are happy all the time are sick. But anyway, I think this Venus on Jupiter, this Venus-Jupiter midpoint is really fortunate. It is about being happy, and it's not, you can be happy without being sick. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be enthusiastic and to think of the best of things, even in a slightly exaggerated way. I think it might be the right approach. So before I finish with looking at the overall picture, I do want to look at today's chart, the position of the planets from a heliocentric perspective. In other words, I want to put the sun in the center of the solar system, and so this is today's astrology from a perspective of the sun, the heliocentric perspective. Now, there was a Mercury Mercury-Uranus-Jupiter conjunction yesterday. It was sort of exact. We can see it's breaking up, but still there is this heliocentric Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. It is still there. I think this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction could be a bit dangerous still. You know, it's not just about freedom. It's about just something, just giving. And I think we do have to be aware of that. Also, the Earth is getting closer to an opposition of Neptune. This is an event that happens once a year, the Earth opposition Neptune. So in a sense, it's not a big deal. But as the Earth starts to approach the opposition of Neptune, it may be about us trying to get our acts together, trying to ground things, but not being particularly successful. We're just aware of the oceans of chaos. Of course, Earth opposition Neptune is the same as Sun conjunct Neptune, by definition. Also, from a heliocentric perspective, we still have this conjunction involving Venus, Mars, and Pluto. It's not exact anymore. I would have thought that overall, heliocentrically, things are starting to dissipate. So, yesterday I was saying, well, things could be quite dramatic. Something has to give somewhere, but perhaps the situation is starting to calm down. Though there is that reminder, Earth opposition Neptune, that we need to have a bit of flexibility, because when things become chaotic, we must make sure we mustn't be too fixed in our plans, because if we're too fixed, then we're not going to be able to make changes as things get more and more chaotic. So yes, a bit of flexibility is going to be important. So having looked at the astrology for today from a general perspective, I now want to look at the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for today, for the 12 signs, for Thursday, March the 14th, 2024. Aries, you feel as though you have a lot to say. After all, Mars, which is your ruler, is semi-square Mercury. But there may be a certain amount of agitation. If you're not careful, the words could come out the wrong way, or they could come out in quite a rough and sharp way. You say things that may upset people, that may not sound particularly natural and harmonious. Now, this might be absolutely fine. If you are trying to make an impression, you feel you need to take someone to task, raise an issue, then that might be the right approach. But you need to see it through. I mean, you can't just say something antagonistic and just assume it's all going to work out. You've got to actually think through, what is the result of your antagonism going to be? And I would suggest that you avoid being antagonistic unless you have a plan. So don't just sort of randomly say something because you've just happened to have been upset by what someone has said or done. Picking a spontaneous argument, that is not a good idea, in my opinion, because I don't think it's going to get you anywhere, and it just may be just more trouble than it's worth. On the other hand, if you feel that now is the time to tell someone how you feel, then okay, you need to do what feels right. Because, what we don't want, Aries, is for you to just feel angry and agitated. Someone might have upset you. There may be a situation you're not happy with, and you're ruminating, you're brooding, you're angry, and you don't know what to do with that anger, and that anger could start manifesting in other ways. So you have to let that anger out, and you need to find a verbal means of expression. It could also be a written means of expression. Emails, text messages, whatever. But remember, when you write an email, or you send a text message, once you press the button, it's gone. The message has been sent, and you can't take it back. So if you're writing angry messages, take time to read them through. Certainly on Gmail, remember there's an undo button. You've got a few seconds, haven't you, to undo a sent email before it's too late. It's been submitted forever, and you've got to deal with the consequences. But while all this is going on, it seems difficult having this Mercury Mars semi-square. Mars and Mercury are on the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. As I said in the introduction, Venus and Jupiter are a fortunate pair. And maybe, Aries, you can transform the anger into something completely different, into enthusiasm. Maybe the difference between anger and enthusiasm is actually just a matter of opinion. And perhaps that, Aries, is what you've got to do. Transform your anger into enthusiasm. Tell people how wonderful things are. Even if you're upset with someone. If you're upset with someone, maybe just focus, a little bit on what has upset you, but then also focus on their good points. Focus on what people can do. Focus on what you can do. This applies particularly to any form of relationship you're in. In some ways, it's true, you can be difficult. But on the other hand, you can be incredibly enthusiastic. And when you're with someone, you can really get their loyalty through your happy enthusiasm. It's okay to be happy. It really is. So try to make that change. But I should say, though, one word of warning, Aries: be careful of hasty behavior. It's one thing saying something that's hasty, because with words you can often take them back. You can always apologize. Sometimes apologies work. But with action, sometimes you can't take them back. If you are hasty, if you do something without thinking it through and there's an accident, or you break something, or worse still, you hurt yourself, it can happen. Because the moon is, the moon is square Mars, and it's conjunct Uranus. So I would say a bit of caution is required, and caution also in terms of money. There's a slight danger of making a financial mistake today, because you're hasty, because you don't think it through. You just spend the money, you make the commitment, you sign a contract, whatever it is, or indeed you might break something and the cost of fixing it might be expensive. So that's another reason why you do need to be a little careful today. But I think it's going to be okay today, provided you just focus on the positive. Taurus. The moon is moving through the latter half of your sign, where it makes a conjunction with Uranus and it makes a square of Mars. I think today could actually be quite a highly charged day. You might feel that you actually have a lot of energy at your disposal. Well, when I say at your disposal, that does suggest that you have a certain amount of flexibility, but I'm not convinced that's true, because I think, Taurus, you will make a decision about where things should be going, where things should be heading, and you're going to want to just follow through with that decision with everything you have got. And I don't think you're going to be in the mood for making changes. I mean, that makes sense. You know, moon moving through Taurus. Taurus is a fixed sign. It's squaring Mars in Aquarius. Aquarius is a fixed sign. This moon conjunct Uranus, moon square Mars, you might think, though, that it is unfortunate, and I think for many people it is going to be difficult, but not so much for Taurus if it is harnessed in the right way. You know, because moon is going through Taurus. There's a moon conjunct Uranus going through Taurus. This is your sign. It's you. That is you, the individual. Moon conjunct Uranus. You, perhaps the rebel. You standing up for what you believe in. And it is square Mars, and Mars in Aquarius. Aquarius is actually quite, from a Taurian perspective, is quite a high profile sign. And so with moon square Mars, this may actually be a really good time for pushing forward with your agenda. And it's a single agenda. It's not a mixed agenda. It's just one thing you want to do. One thing you want to be taken seriously for. You expect society to listen to you, accept you, and perhaps do things your way. That might sound unreasonable, but maybe Taurus, it's okay to be unreasonable, just for today. But do be aware of the consequences of your actions. You are having an impact on the world around you, and you want to make sure that that impact is not negative. Now, one thing that might spoil the day could be other people. I say this because Mars is semi-square Mercury. You may find that some of the people around you are very strident with what they say. They tell you what they think, and Taurans actually can sometimes be quite easily offended. And so if someone says something that you don't like, that you do find offensive, you might really hold on to it. You might react very quickly and and then respond in a way that creates further conflict. I would suggest, Taurus, that that when people say something, if people say something offensive, or when they criticize you, don't take it to heart. Firstly, it's only words. Secondly, it is possible that it might be a genuine criticism. And this especially applies if you're dealing with someone who's important to you. So if someone close to you says something that you don't like, that is critical perhaps, then yeah, consider the possibility that they are right, or consider the possibility that they are just being a bit too impulsive, or consider the possibility that it's not their fault, not your fault, it's just the way it is in terms of from an astrological perspective. Hey, you know, you've got Mercury semi-square Mars. What else do you expect? So don't over-interpret what people say. It's not really going to be helpful. Finally, Taurus, do consider some of your talents today. Today is actually a day when you can actually start to bring to bear some of your creative and business talents in terms of the world out there. You can show the world what you can do. Maybe it's a creative talent. It could be a business or an entrepreneurial talent. But you can really bring it to bear. So consider a way of doing that. You know, it's something that comes from you. It's not. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not, or pretend to have a talent that you don't have. This is a talent that you have that perhaps in the past you've kept quiet about, but maybe now is a time to bring it out into the open. Gemini. Mercury is your ruler, and Mercury is semi-square Mars. You know, I do believe that this semi-square between Mercury and Mars, you know, is the main aspect for today. And Mercury is, you know, Mercury is under a bit of pressure with this semi-square to Mars. Gemini, you are perhaps famous for what you say, and I think you're going to have a lot to say. Gemini's words can go all over the place, with not just enthusiasm, but also with a bit of anger. And I'm basically saying to everyone that we have to watch out Mercury square Mars with what we say. But for you, Gemini, it's particularly important that you're careful what you say. You might not think that words matter. You know that thing. What's that? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. All that kind of thing. I don't know if that's actually true. You know, words can actually cause a lot of damage. So Gemini, do be very careful what you say, but that doesn't mean that you should just be quiet. No, far from it. You can actually make the world a better place through what you say, but you have to choose what you say carefully. You should remind yourself that being a Gemini, you are a rational human being. You're not prey to the emotional currents like other people are. You can think through what you're saying. You can cover yourself, and you can always look on the bright side. That's strange. I'm just looking at my bookshelf and I'm seeing this word bright-sided. It's a book about American optimism. It's okay if you're in America to be an American optimism. Bright-sided by Barbara Ehrenreich. Yeah, it's a book which was criticizing, but sort of critical of that American optimism. But no, we're not. I'm not going to criticize American optimism today. Particularly for Geminis, it is actually okay to be optimistic. You know, because Mercury is your ruler, and it's conjunct the Venus-Jupiter. It's conjunct the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. Be optimistic. So if you feel like saying a lot, then talking about how good the world is and how good the world can be might be a good idea. Now, you might think that it's complete garbage, that you're just being overly optimistic, that it's not true. But I think today, actually, it might be appropriate. Now, that's something I'm going to try and remember. Remember, I'm a Gemini as well, so I'm going to find it quite difficult to be optimistic and positive all day long. So it's a challenge for me. It's not just for you. I'm not. Or maybe you could argue I'm just projecting. No, I'm not projecting. Geminis, we do have to make that special effort to be positive. Having said that, there's no need to be in a position where you have to be talking all day long, because the moon is in Taurus. It's not in Gemini yet. Moon does go into Gemini very soon. In fact, late tonight, New York time, 11:16 in the evening, I think, Moon goes into Gemini. So if you're in New York on the Eastern time zone, I know 11:16 is getting late, but if you happen to be a night owl, you might, in New York, you might sort of, on an Eastern time zone, you might notice a sort of a sudden change. Suddenly you feel a new energy and a new enthusiasm. And it's even earlier if you're in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, that's 8:16 in the evening. So in fact, if you're this evening in the Pacific Standard Time, or is it Pacific Daylight Time now? There could be a sudden change, and suddenly you've got even more stuff to talk about. But don't worry if you're not in the Americas. The moon will move into Gemini tomorrow. So really, Gemini, that's the picture. Try to focus on the positive today, and don't worry if it feels a bit fake. It's okay. It is appropriate. It might actually, you might start feeling fake, but once you get into the swing of it, it might actually be quite natural, and in the process you can make the world a better place. Cancer. There certainly seems to be a lot of toing and froing today in terms of other people. If you're socializing, it may feel as if there are things to be done, but you perhaps have to ask yourself the question about whether it's really worth it. I mean, it is true that you can interact with people, and your social skills are pretty good, but it could end up being quite stressful. I mean, remember that the moon is your ruler. Moon is in Taurus at the moment, which is good because the moon is exalted in Taurus, so that's all very well. But the moon does make a conjunction to Uranus, and it does make a square to Mars, and that may indicate arguments. If you spend a lot of time with people, then at a certain stage people might start to become stubborn and even argumentative. And that person might be you. After all, the moon is square Mars, and moon square Mars can be argumentative. It may insist on being right. I think that's particularly the case if you're a female Cancerian. The medieval astrologer, what was his name, Guido Bonatus, he had these aphorisms, and I can't remember what he said off the top of my head. It was something like, when he was describing Moon and Mars, he said something like, The woman is always right, I'll warrant. And so basically what he was saying is with Moon and Mars, don't argue with women. And so if you're a female Cancerian and with this Moon square Mars, particularly as the Moon is conjunct Uranus, you're going to want to get your way. You are going to believe that you are in the right. I'm not going to say, obviously I'm not going to disagree with you. But that might become an issue if you are out socializing. If you're with people, you don't even have to be out socializing. You can be on the phone. But maybe you need to reflect a little. If you find yourself insisting that you're right about something, do consider whether it's really appropriate, and are there two ways of looking at things? Maybe, I have to be careful here, but it may be you're wrong. It's possible, but give it some thought. Having said that, the Moon is sextile the Sun. Moon is in Taurus, Sun is in Pisces. So Moon sextile Sun is actually quite a harmonious aspect. So however much tension and friction you might feel, there is a way to smooth things over. And fundamentally, if you can just sort of relax and be yourself, you can find a sense of harmony. And it's probably about being able to get a broader view. If you're down here on Earth, looking down, looking at the world and its problems, one's view can become narrow, and you can see the conflict. You can see how different people how different people have different viewpoints. How there's plenty of scope for argument. But if you can gain some ground, gain some height. Metaphorical height. I'm not saying you have to climb up towers or get into aeroplanes. I'm talking about metaphorical height. If you gain some height, get the broad view, perhaps start to relate things to some broader spiritual, philosophical framework, then I think you'll start to see some perspective, and you'll maybe start to also realize that matters of right and wrong are, they're very temporary. They're bound to this earth. Nothing lasts forever. But there are some greater truths that, in a way, transcend petty concerns about right and wrong. Leo. You are quite gregarious in your own way. Gregarious in the sense that you are able to form harmonious connections with other people. May not be the first thing that comes to mind. I think in the first instance you may feel sort of quite serious. There are serious things going on. But if you make a real effort, then I think you can bring new people into your sphere, and you can certainly make new contacts. So, possibly the word gregarious was not quite the right word. Okay, gregarious, I'd probably take that back, because the word gregarious is I suppose, too light. It's true that you can communicate, but I suppose the lightness, I would kind of take that back. What I was really trying to say is you have certain social skills today, which you don't want to underestimate, and you might be inclined to underestimate them. And really, your focus today is on the outside world, even if you don't feel like it. you do understand that the world out there does have an influence on you. You can't do anything about that. So given that situation, it might make sense to interact with it. But only up to a point. I think, the problem is that, today there is a conjunction between the moon and Uranus. So if the moon and Uranus are conjunct in Taurus, then you may actually want to stamp your impression on the world. You might want to stamp your personality onto the world. Your individual way of being is important. You certainly don't want to be ignored, and that's what you're going to be trying to do. But your attempts to make an impression may get a negative response in some quarters. That is because Mars is in late Aquarius. Remember, Aquarius is your opposite sign. So with Moon making a square to Mars, then your attempts to be an individual, your attempts to push forward with your program may get resistance, and you have to work out how best to deal with this resistance. It's resistance that is going to be difficult to untangle because there is a lot of stubbornness all round. You're going to be stubborn, the other person is going to be stubborn. Maybe very difficult to come to an agreement. What do you do in this situation? In the first instance, you're perhaps not in the mood for flexibility, but when you consider the issue again, you may be able to be flexible in a way that doesn't compromise anything. You can give away the things that don't matter, but you can keep secure the things that are really vital. And by giving away a little on the edges, you're making the other person think that they've got some kind of victory. And if they think they've got a victory, then everyone's happy. But you know privately that you haven't given anything away at all. You've given away some crumbs in order to get the larger result. And in doing that, I think, Leo, you are demonstrating your inner emotional power. And we should remember that today there is a sextile between the sun and the moon. Sun is your ruler, it's sextile the moon. You can bring to bear your emotional power. And ideally, you will bring it to bear in such a way that no one notices you. Remember, it's all about getting your way. It's all about being successful. Perceptions don't really matter. And as I was just saying just a minute or two ago, it's okay if someone else feels they're the winner and you're the loser, because that's their perception. You have to look at the reality of the situation. So you can actually give away a little and gain a great deal in the longer term. Virgo. I think, Virgo, you do have to be a little careful what you say. When I was talking to Gemini, I was saying that Mercury's semi-square Mars was potentially a big deal because Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. Well, Mercury is also the ruler of Virgo. So, like Gemini, you are going to be influenced by a semi-square aspect between Mercury and Mars. And if you're not careful, you might say stuff that you later regret, and you may be wondering why you said what you said. Because, in some respects, Virgo, you're fairly emotional at the moment. Emotional as in taking things seriously, taking your inner world seriously. And there are a lot of things, Virgo, that you don't really want to reveal because it just all seems so intense. And with Mercury semi-square Mars, it's like there are some things you kind of want to reveal, but you don't want to reveal, and something happens, and you just feel you can't help yourself, and you reveal it, and then later you're worrying, well, were you right to do that? Were you right to reveal your irritation with someone? So what I would say to that, Virgo, is that you have to be careful what you reveal, and perhaps you need to choose what you reveal, because it seems that today you've got to reveal something. It's just that motion of letting something go, telling someone what's on your mind, is going to be cathartic, and perhaps it doesn't really matter what you say is on your mind. You've got a choice. Do you tell someone that you don't like them, or do you tell them that I don't know, that you can't stand Donald Trump, for example, or that you love Donald Trump, whatever. I'm just giving it as an example. You've got to tell them something, anything that feels like a revelation. So, choose your revelation. Then you have control. But if you don't make a choice, a conscious choice, then you may end up revealing something you don't want to reveal. So it's all about being in control. But there are other things going on, and I think, Virgo, that sometimes you can be overly obsessed with having things all in the right order, and I think that's true. I think that is true today. With Mercury semi-square Mars, you are going to want things to be placed correctly. You're going to want a sense of knowing what's going to happen next. In a way, that's because you're a Virgo, but I think that's going to be particularly important with Mercury semi-square Mars. Because Mercury is your ruler, and getting agitated if you cannot predict what's going to happen next, getting agitated if something happens that you weren't expecting. But maybe, Virgo, you should regard unexpected events as some kind of opportunity, because if you think about it, if everything is expected, if you know what's going to happen next, and you could almost write a script for it, well, what's the point in being alive? We're supposed to have free will. Isn't that what it's all about? We can choose what to believe and what not to believe. We can choose what to do, because I should say, if we're as an astrologer, I actually believe there are limits to free will. I'll be honest about that. But from a Christian perspective, we're supposed to have free will, aren't we? We have the freedom to sin. But we also have the freedom to see the world in a new way. And that's perhaps what you should be looking at. Events can happen that you weren't planning on, which in the first instance you might find irritating, but which may be enlightening. You suddenly see the world in a new way, and because you can see the world in a new way, a new path may open up to you, and it may contradict the past. It may contradict some of your beliefs from the past. So don't be too obsessed with what you believe, because what you believe today may not be what you believe tomorrow, and sometimes a change of belief can be liberating. Libra. Libra, you may feel that there are things going on that you don't fully understand. You like to understand what's happening, particularly in the social world. If you're a typical Libra, you regard people as important. It's all about balance, isn't it? You don't want to upset the balance, and that means that sometimes you don't want to spend too long in one place, because if you spend too long in one place, things can start getting complicated, and maybe this is what is happening at the moment. It's just something you're not entirely comfortable with. Maybe you're seeing a side to people's personality that you hadn't seen before, and that's somehow not reassuring. So what do you do about the situation? Well, reality is important. One can only live on the surface up to a point. At a certain stage, we do have to consider what the true underlying reality really is like. And maybe today, Libra, you are starting to see the true underlying reality, the real reality, and in the process, there may be a little bit of conflict. When you see people doing things that you hadn't expected of them, you'd expected them to run according to a script, your script, and now you're seeing people as individuals. And yes, I do think that could be pretty challenging. But scripts don't only affect other people, they can affect you. There's always a danger that you run your life according to a script. And if you are running your life according to a script, or parts of your life, well, in fact, we all run our life according to a script. It's probably only about 5% of our behavior is unscripted. And you need to perhaps consider the part of your life that are unscripted, where you behave in a way that no one has anticipated. And that could be reflected not just in your behavior, but also in the things you say. You might make an observation that you weren't expecting to make, and that observation you make, which is quite a powerful observation. Librans can do that. They can make these out of the blue observations about what makes people tick, and these observations can be absolutely spot on, but some people might not appreciate them. Well, that's just too bad, perhaps. Though in terms of relationships, it is a mixed picture. Mars, from a Libran perspective, it rules Aries, your opposite sign. So if you want to know about relationships, the people you have to deal with in your everyday life, you look at Mars and you notice that Mars is making a semi-square aspect to Mercury. So you might find that some of the people you have to deal with, and some of the people who are close to you, may be saying things which are not entirely to your liking, or they may seem hasty, and their words may jar. I mean, you're a Libra, you like things to be nice and balanced and harmonious, and so when someone says things that jar, that could be upsetting. But why does it jar? What makes something out of balance? Well, what puts it out of balance is your expectations. So allow people to say things which are perhaps a bit tactless, perhaps a bit clumsy, but just don't make too much of a big deal about it. Also, give people an opportunity to show their best. What you see at the beginning of someone's personality may not be the same as what you see at the end. Maybe you have to go and see. Maybe you have to stick with it. Someone who starts as being difficult may, in fact, turn out to be, a real gem. They may show a really wonderful side to their personality that you absolutely hadn't expected. So give everyone a chance to show their best. Scorpio. I've been talking a lot today about a semi-square between Mercury and Mars. Mars is your ruler. Okay, I know some people think that Pluto rules Scorpio, but from my perspective, it doesn't. The ruler of Scorpio is Mars. And so with Mars making a semi-square to Mercury, you do have a lot to say, but some of the things you say might be offensive. They might be disruptive, but you do feel you've got to say something. If you say nothing, which actually some Scorpios may be tempted to do, because it might feel as if it's easier to say nothing. Keep quiet. Save your criticisms for later. Keep your feelings to yourself. That's not the right approach. If you take that approach, I think in most cases you're going to start to feel really agitated. There'll be that inner anger. Scorpios can feel a lot of inner anger, and if you're not talking, then that inner anger could really start to build up. It's therefore important that you find a way of expressing yourself in a healthy and harmonious way. And I understand that in certain cases that could be difficult. The moon is currently moving through Taurus, and the moon is in your opposite, which is your opposite sign. And so, moon in Taurus square Mars and conjunct Uranus, that moon could create aggravation between you and another person, and the things you say could actually make matters even worse. So there is real scope there for interpersonal conflict, but it doesn't have to happen. We have to remember that the moon is sextile the sun. Moon and sextile sun is very harmonious. So how does moon sextile sun prevent a conflict from happening? I think one way of preventing a conflict is actually to look at the common ground between you and someone else. And that common ground may be about a common creative interest. So if you try to find that common creative interest between you and another person, then all the other incompatibilities will start to fade into the background. And ideally, if you and someone else can be enjoying yourselves in the same way by focusing on that common creative interest, that would be absolutely great. And Scorpio, you are actually able to make people feel good about themselves. You really can, and today you can do it. The things you say, which could be devastating, could be unsettling, super unsettling, you could transform that. Your words don't have to be like an attack of, I don't know, Asian hornets or whatever. That's not how your words have to be. Your words can actually be healing, because you can address particular issues, unlock particular issues, and then allow people to explore the best possible way of using their potential. So you can actually be a great force for good, Scorpio. You can also be a great force for harm today as well. That's typical Scorpio, isn't it? But I think, Scorpio, if you play it right, I think you can really be quite a healing force today, and you can allow other people to be happier and more content. Does require a bit of effort, but you have to ask yourself, perhaps, what are you on this planet for? It's not just about you; it is about the world around you. Sagittarius. There remains a bit of work to do, I feel. It's like something needs to be finished off. It feels perhaps a little boring, having to finish something off. You would rather move on to something else. But you can't. Okay, you could. But then if you did, you'd be leaving unfinished business. And that unfinished business you're going to have to return to it. And indeed, if you leave unfinished business, you might end up with a situation where you're allowing something to fester and get moldy and start to become a real problem. So if something is unfinished, then today, Sagittarius, I would strongly recommend that you deal with it. Don't put it off until tomorrow. But once you get going on it, I don't think it's going to be too bad. I think you're going to actually feel a certain sense of satisfaction that you are able to do something that is useful. So you're using the day's energies then in a correct way. But there might be some distractions. There are going to be things going on which might annoy you. This is particularly the case if you're having to interact with a lot of different people, if you're having to go out somewhere, beyond your own home. In some ways, Sagittarius, you'd probably prefer to stay at home, but if you're having to go somewhere else, then you might feel it's a bit of a pain, and once you're there, you might come across people who are really, in their own way, quite obnoxious. I know that Sagittarius often has a reputation for being the tactless one, for the one being insulting and outrageous, but no, I think today it's more other people, even people you know and love normally, are quite capable of causing you mental angst through what they say. So, I mean, I would suggest that perhaps you shouldn't take things too seriously. And also, in terms of all the people you know, just consider everyone you know. It does seem that some limitation and pairing, I mean by pairing I'm talking about cutting back, things need to be brought in. It's like you almost know too many people. There are too many people in your address book. Too many contacts. A lot of these contacts are no good. They're not doing any good. They're from the past. They may even be restricting you. So perhaps you should consider all the people you know. I mean, it's nearly the spring. Okay, in the northern hemisphere, it's nearly the spring. I understand in the southern hemisphere, it's nearly the autumn. So north or whether it's a spring clean or autumn clean, as we approach the equinox, which is it's pretty close now, isn't it? It's next week. As we approach the equinox, it may be a time to spring or autumn clean your address book. Just clear it out. Clear out the people who are no longer necessary, people who are holding you back. Because I think right now that is the way forward. That is something that you should be doing. It might be difficult. I mean, Sagittarians, they always like to keep their options open. But I think you know that certain people and situations are actually a dead end. And so the dead ends need to be cleared out. And then what you have left, what's left is something really positive that is nurturing, that can support you as a person. Capricorn, you are an individual. Well, of course you're an individual. We're all individuals. But today I think that your individuality is pretty important. You are going to want to express yourself in your own way, and you are not going to be in the mood for compromise. And I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely right. Because you can't play things according to another person's rules. You have to play things according to your rules, and also according to what makes you happy, what makes you satisfied, and do focus on that. But it does seem that there is pressure to do things someone else's way. And because of that pressure, there may be a little bit of an argument, or at least a little bit of friction. But I wouldn't really worry about it too much. I think it is passing. If you stick to what is important to you, then in the end, you'll get your way. And if anyone's trying to bother you, they'll just fall by the wayside. And so that does look good. One irritation you might find today is money. There's just some financial issue. It may not be your financial issue. It may be someone else's financial issue. But it just is a bit of an irritation, and it may spoil the fun. So if you find that a financial issue suddenly crops up, you've got a bit of a choice. I suppose you could ignore it, particularly if it's not your financial issue, it's someone else's financial issue. Yes, you could ignore it. Or you could decide to address it, but within a time limit. You might want to spend 10 minutes focusing on on something financial, using all of the material and business skills that are intrinsic to Capricorn, and very quickly try to resolve it. I think you can resolve it, or at least you can stabilize it. But I'm not saying that it need be an issue. It needn't be an issue at all. It really is up to you. Turning to relationships, I think it really does depend. Some people are completely on your wavelength. They completely understand what you want, what you don't like, and at the same time, you share the same creative aspirations with them, and you enjoy the same things. That's some people are like that. Other people are basically disruptive. They want attention. They want to be taken seriously. They're trying to perhaps impose their view upon you. And it's therefore important, Capricorn, that you make the right choices, and that you make sure that you give time to the right people, and that you ignore the wrong people. So you have to make some decisions there. You cannot today be friends with everyone. But those people you decide to be friends with, it's just very important to have mutual respect for each other's creative spark. And I think that is something you can do. But again, if you and someone else have different ideas about what is fun, about what is a good thing to be doing, about where to go, if you do have different views, then it's okay to part company, at least temporarily, at least for the day. And really, Capricorn, I think that's about it. And it can be a very simple day. And I suppose I have to say that the less people you have to deal with, the simpler it's going to be, but not to the point of being a hermit. I think if you're a complete hermit, then you might feel that something is missing. Aquarius. Like Capricorn, Capricorn and Aquarius do have certain similarities. Both signs are ruled by Saturn. Like Capricorn, I think you are going to sort of continue to put a high premium on your own space. Oops, that's the wrong one. You know what you like, you know what you don't like, and your space is important to you. And in that sense, you need to be very clear. But you might think that if you are in complete control, then you have complete stability. But that's not necessarily the case. Today there is a conjunction between the moon and Uranus in Taurus. And from an Aquarian perspective, the sign Taurus is a very foundational sign, often connected with the home. And with the moon making a conjunction to Uranus in Taurus, there may be some foundational changes. You may see things in a different way. You may see that maybe family members are behaving in a way that's somewhat unexpected, that you hadn't really planned for. And this may actually be challenging. So things going on at home could be challenging. You think this is the least challenging place to be, but actually it may be the most challenging place to be, because you're having to deal with foundational issues, and you're realizing that the foundations of the thing are not necessarily as rock solid as you thought. And I'm not talking about earthquakes, I hope, or things falling apart, but you just realizing that things are not quite as they seem, and therefore a few changes in your home environment may be necessary. They may actually be forced upon you. But I think you see this when you open your eyes, and perhaps we might be physical changes at home, might be social changes. It's just how you relate to everything in your domestic environment, and how some of it does need to change. And I think it's possible that there is a financial dimension to the thing, but possibly in a favourable way. You may be able to consider, domestic finances in a new way, and start to appreciate that you can save yourself money, or perhaps make yourself money. Maybe there's a way to open up a new income stream from home. Do consider that possibility. It might be there, it might be staring you in the face, and it's just obvious, because it depends entirely on your situation. But you mustn't be in a situation where you feel that you're losing control, because I must emphasize, you really are in control. Today, you're the one that can make things happen, but at first sight, it may seem as if there are events going on, even in your domestic environment, that you're not in control over. But I think you can take control. I'm fairly sure about that. And once you work it all out, then I think you can be quite effective. And I think, Aquarius, you can show some real leadership. Pisces, like yesterday, you probably have a lot to say, and that's great. But as I've been saying repeatedly today, all of us have to be very careful what we say, regardless of our sign, and particularly for you, Pisces, it's going to be too easy to say things. It'll be really easy. The words will just come out. You'll deliver your message, but then you have to deal with the consequences of your message. And you have to remember that today there is a conjunction between the Moon and Uranus. Uranus is quite an unstable influence. It can often be connected with earthquakes and earth tremors, and because of this Moon conjunct Uranus in a fairly communicative sign from a Pisces perspective. In the jargon, Taurus represents your third house. Third house also often connected with communication. And that means that your words could have an unexpected consequence, and you might get some unexpected feedback. And yet in this light, Mercury rules Virgo. Virgo's your opposite sign. So with Mercury ruling Virgo, and it's semi-square Mars. Mars is quite an aggressive force. Some people are really capable of arguing, of engaging in verbal aggression, and it's so easy to partake in that. And I'm not really sure that you should be encouraging it. Once you start talking, once you start criticizing, then really there's no end to it. So maybe Pisces, a bit of discipline is required. Choose your company carefully. In fact, I've been telling quite a few signs, certainly a couple of signs, to choose their company carefully. And for you, I would definitely say choose your company carefully. You may actually realize, when you're listening to people, when you start to listen to people, that there are some people that you actually don't particularly like. Sudden realization, you just don't like them. And it may be that you've reached an important conclusion. If you realize you don't like someone, then that should be the end of it, shouldn't it? I mean, logically. So perhaps you should be distancing yourself from certain people. And how do you judge whether or not someone should be distanced from? Maybe you listen to them. If you listen to someone for long enough, then it's clear who they are, what motivates them, and whether or not you want to have them around. So do bear that in mind. And also, Pisces, don't underestimate your own feelings and your own unconscious mind. I think that today there's quite a lot of unconscious activity. Things happening in your unconscious which could influence what you're doing out there in the real world. Particularly if you're denying something. If you are denying that you don't like someone, then that denial may be overridden by your unconscious, and you may do something to upset someone at an unconscious level deliberately, because you're trying to create an argument in order to get them out of your life. That really is possible. So it might be better if you were to consciously understand that you don't like someone, rather than just have some scene created out of nowhere because your unconscious feels it needs to step in. But I don't want to over-dramatize today. I don't think today need be dramatic. I think if you want, Pisces, you can have a relatively quiet day. Gentle interactions with people you know and trust. Maybe on the spur of a moment, you're going to want to visit someone. That's okay, but the journey can be more important than the destination. Things can happen on the journey. And what happens on the journey perhaps has a lot to do with your own awareness. It's important to be aware of yourself, and also to be aware of your capacity for doing something unexpected. So yeah, if you're traveling anywhere, that's great, but just be careful how you travel, and make sure that something doesn't happen that you hadn't planned for. But maybe if in doubt, you should perhaps stay where you are. That is today from an astrological perspective. I now want to look at today from the perspective of the I Ching. And as always, I ask the question, what is Thursday going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 61, Inner Truth. It's as the hexagram says, we start to understand the inner truth of something. And I know that we're in this sort of post-truth era, that everyone's got their own truth and there's no such thing as the absolute truth. But this inner truth it's a real truth, but of course it is a subjective truth. It is our truth. But for us, this truth is absolute. The clouds will clear, and our situation will be right in front. Will be straight right in front of us. We'll see the truth, and it might also be a time for explaining to other people the truth. So if you have got some truth that you absolutely know is right, absolutely, but in the past it's been difficult to get through to people, then finally today you might have that chance. Suddenly, if you use the right words, people will start to listen. Now, this inner truth may also have a sense of acceptance in terms of hierarchies and our own ego. Some of us, don't like being in a lower position than someone else. It's like, I suppose, if one's got a job, one has an employer. That's a natural hierarchical situation. One can't do anything about it. In a family, there are hierarchical situations. There are hierarchies. Even within one's circle of friends, there are people that know more than others, or have greater wisdom. And inner truth may, for some of us, be about accepting our place, accepting that someone else can be trusted and is worthy of our loyalty. Remember, the I Ching is it's this ancient oracle from China. It has a very sort of Confucian aspect to it. The Confucianism is about accepting the hierarchies as they are, but hierarchies are the structure of society. If hierarchies break down, they're a problem. Of course, the core hierarchy is the family, and society should be based on the family. And it's accepting perhaps our position in the hierarchy, and accepting maybe that some people know more than us. And that might be a bit of a relief to say, hold on, I've had this ego, I've been wanting to be in control, I've been the one wanting to bark the orders, but now, no. There are perhaps people that know better than me. It's that kind of thing we might feel with inner truth, but fundamentally we do get it. Now, there are two moving lines here. The third line moves and the fourth line moves. And they present a rather different message. So the third line moving, in the I Ching, the third line from the bottom is often unfortunate. And it's not so unfortunate with inner truth, but with that third line from the bottom moving, we may feel today that we're at the mercy of whatever is happening around us. We're trying to find the truth, we're trying to find some stability, yet there may be a danger that we become completely reliant on other people's feedback and other people's behavior. So if we're in a positive environment, if we're told nice things, we feel happy. If we're told bad things, we feel miserable. Just going to and fro. It's like being obsessed with the stock market. You know, if you have all your money in the stock market, or even particularly in one share, you know, when the share is going up, you feel happy. When it's going down, you feel miserable. And there is that sense that we are at the mercy of external events in terms of our happiness. And that could actually prevent us from understanding what the inner truth actually is. And there may come a point in a day where we sort of just lose the plot a bit. We might find that something is just disappearing in front of us. We thought we had the truth. We thought we understood something. And then something happens. This is the fourth line from the bottom moving. And then everything is chaos, and we might think, hold on, do we really know the truth? Do we really understand it? But then finally it returns to normal, that, you know, we get it. And what I think the message here is that we have to focus, we have to look ahead. You know, the inner truth, we have this moment of inner truth where we see what we are supposed to be doing. We have that insight. We can remember that insight. Then things start to happen where we start to have our doubts. Do I know what I'm doing? Maybe our doubts are intensified by how other people are reacting to us. But we have our doubts. But what we have to do is we have to remember what we realize. We have to remember that inner truth, and we just have to keep going and ignore all the distractions from the outside. In that sense, it's a bit like the tarot card, the moon. The tarot card, the moon, is like, you know, it's a road, isn't it? The tarot card often has a road, but there are lots of distractions on either side of the road because it's by moonlight. Doing things by moonlight is deceptive, and so there's a danger that we go off the road. When we go off the road, it's complete chaos. So many distractions, ghosts, spirits, weird stuff, and we might get completely lost. So what we have to do is we have to get back on the road. And so inner truth is a bit like that. We have to get back onto the road, focus on what's ahead, not get distracted by what's on either side, and then we can move forward. Certain that, you know, we have chosen the right goal for ourselves. And then this hexagram 61, it does move. It does move to hexagram 1, the first hexagram. Look, all the lines are unbroken. It's the creative. And so as we understand our own truth, what we should be doing, we suddenly get a creative outburst. Everything's aligned, and we can really start making things happen. But making things happen possibly without much thought or intention. You know, the creative is the spark. It's not the result, it's the spark. It's that creative spark within us. And the creative hexagram is very primal. We have to work out where that creative spark is taking us. So it's not about the destination, it's about that creative spark that gets released once we understand our inner truth, once we ignore all the distractions. And then, you know, by the end of the day, we can actually be feeling in a powerful situation. And what's really powerful about our situation is we don't have any desires. We don't actually have any clear plans. It's just that raw creative force. We just know we're going in the right direction. And then the next challenge will be, where do we take this to? Where, you know, how do we actually use this creative spark? But that would be sort of moving beyond this I Ching reading. But overall, I think this reading today is quite powerful. There are distractions, but I'm confident that we can all look ahead and not leave the path. Which brings me on to the subject of Prince William. Does Prince William have a path? I don't know. But I'm certainly going to look at his horoscope today. I'm going to be looking at Prince William's horoscope in the light of what's been happening to Kate. This suggestion also that the Daily Mail made that he and I think other members of the palace staff have not been giving Kate the support she should have been getting, and I think the Daily Mail, or the source the Daily Mail was quoting, was suggesting that William had been ungentlemanly. I didn't read the article in detail, but it's certainly something to consider. And I want to start by looking at William's chart. And William's chart is perhaps less easy to make sense of than his wife Catherine's chart. And I think the chart basically tells us not to bother. I mean, that's the implication. He's got Neptune rising. Do we normally see William as having Neptune rising? Of course, he does have Neptune rising, and that may indicate that perhaps in terms of a public perception of William, maybe we've got something wrong. I mean, the ascendant is the way we present ourselves to the world. I mean, when I was learning astrology in the 80s, they always said the ascendant was the mask. I mean, I know that's not a traditional view of the ascendant, but it was certainly what I was taught when I started learning. And if you've got Neptune on the ascendant, it's confusing, isn't it? Will the real William stand up? That may be what that Neptune rising is asking. And he also has, he was born on a new moon, and he was born right at the beginning of Cancer. If he'd been born, a few minutes earlier, he would have been a Gemini. His sun is at well, not a few minutes earlier, but I think it's more than that, an hour or two earlier. If he'd been born a couple of hours earlier, he would have been a Gemini. So he was born, right on the. Right, there's no such thing as cusps in astrology, because once you're over, you're over. His sun is for sure in Cancer, and he was born with a new moon in the 7th. So you could say that is about a life of service. That's what it should be. That should be his destiny. The 7th is the other, and he's got the North Node in Cancer. So that's perhaps what he should be doing. The North Node is where we should be going. It's in the 7th. It's the other. Relationships should be important. It's perhaps his service to his country, his service to his family, and perhaps his service to his wife. Giving everything to a relationship, to a marriage, is what he should be doing. But just because that's what he should be doing doesn't necessarily mean he is doing. He has got the South Node in Capricorn. So if you use the Placidus house system, South Node in Capricorn, his line of least resistance is perhaps to be selfish, to think of himself and his own interests. And perhaps we're seeing this with the photographs. If the Daily Mail article is true, that he's being ungentlemanly and that everyone was putting, Catherine was forced to take responsibility for this photo. And I think that William took the photo. So there's that South Node in Capricorn kicking in. Got to look after myself. Maybe. I mean, that is a distinct possibility. Also, he has Jupiter in Scorpio on the midheaven. There's Jupiter in Scorpio in the midheaven. You could say that's just the natural sign of someone who is going to be king. Jupiter on the midheaven. Okay, it's not like Sun conjunct the royal star Regulus on the midheaven. It's Jupiter. It's in Scorpio. It's maybe not the best place for Jupiter, but he's got Sun. He's got this Sun trine Jupiter. Sun in Cancer trine. Sun at 0 degrees Cancer trine Jupiter at 0 degrees Scorpio, with the Sun on the descendant, with Jupiter on the midheaven. I mean, that is overall, I would have said, quite a fortunate trine, and that's a further hint of his kingship, of his success in his, what is his career? His career is he was born into the firm, and he was born to be king, and that's what he was born to be. In terms of Catherine, he does have a very troubling conjunction in his chart. He's got a Venus conjunct Chiron in Taurus. Now let's just a reminder, going to Princess, looking at his mother's chart. There's his mother's chart. His mother had her Venus at 24 Taurus. So her son was born on her Venus return. Venus was conjunct her Venus when Prince William was born. Now, you could say, Venus is well placed in Taurus. Venus is the ruler of Taurus. Look at William's chart; it's in the 5th house. Wonderful Venus, but there's a problem with that Venus. His Venus is on Caput Algol. Ras Al Ghul, I think, in Arabic. And that means the head of the demon. There is this fixed star called the head of the demon, Ras Al Ghul in Arabic. And it represents, in the stars, it's when Perseus beheaded the Medusa, when he was holding up her head. And it is an incredibly difficult fixed star. It's the worst fixed star in the book. And I think in terms of what happened to his mother, I think we can see how it was working. But it's about women, as that primal woman, Venus, is his mother. And of course his mother died in the tunnel in Paris on August the 31st. August the 31st, 1997. But just because his mother's dead doesn't mean the malefic influence of Venus on Algol has gone as well. And it also conjunct Chiron. Chiron is this minor planet. It's also a comet, and it's often connected with wounds. You could say Venus conjunct Chiron is a wounded woman in his context. So, what has Catherine walked into? In many respects, she is the Venus projection. By marrying Catherine, she has identified with Venus conjunct Chiron conjunct Caput Algol. And perhaps this tells us something about what's going on. Now, Venus conjunct Algol, in fact, Algol in general, I've looked at Algol, I've considered Algol. My understanding of Algol, in terms of the charts I've looked at, I think there's a lot of jealousy connected with Algol. Now, particularly women with, I don't know, you may have a different view, particularly, women who have got Algol configured may attract jealousy. And so with, maybe, I suppose, Diana, were there people jealous of Diana? Are there people jealous of Catherine, of Catherine? Well, if you read the papers, then you'd suggest that, Meghan is very jealous of her. Is that true? I don't know. But it's just a woman who attracts negativity. And in Diana's case, I suppose she was harried, pursued by the press. But of course, it was a drunk driver that killed her. Let's not forget that. But here's Catherine becoming Venus conjunct Chiron conjunct Algol. And I think that perhaps a lot of the problems she's dealing with at the moment are related to the fact that she's becoming part of Prince William's horoscope. Now, maybe for ordinary people this isn't such an issue, but I suppose if you're married to the heir to the throne, it really does become quite unconscious and collective. So I do think there is major cause for concern here with that Venus conjunct Algol conjunct Chiron. And then I wanted to look at the horoscope of the marriage. So William and Catherine were married on the 29th of April 2011. So here is a chart for their marriage. I've gone for 11:20 a.m. I was looking in The Guardian. The Guardian is very good at timelines. If you want to know what a time has happened, The Guardian is very good at having, they'll have an event and they'll look at the times at which different things happened, and very often it's The Guardian that gives me the time for certain things. And it said that the whoever was conducting the marriage declared them man and wife at 11:20 a.m. So I think all the vows and all that process started at around 11:15. So it was between 11:15 and 11:20. And so this is the chart for the marriage when they became man and wife. As one of the commenters, mentioned that the moon is void on my last YouTube video. Lisa Michelle, thank you very much for pointing it out to me. The moon is void. In other words, the moon has made its last aspect before leaving the sign. But they married in 2011. The marriage is still there. 13 years later, they're still married. They've got 3 children. By modern standards, that's not bad, even if they divorce tomorrow. So to say with the moon in Pisces, to say that the marriage is going nowhere would not be entirely true. But by the way, I should explain what the void of course moon means. It is the moon has made its last major aspect to a major traditional planet, that's Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, before leaving the sign. So yes, the moon is void. But, you know, William Lilly, the 17th century astrologer, he does say, I think he says that the moon can sometimes work in Jupiter, and the moon can sometimes function well, even when it's void, when it is in Pisces and Sagittarius, because Pisces and Sagittarius are ruled by Jupiter. So I don't think the void moon is such a problem, but it still may undermine the marriage a little. We don't know quite what it is, but maybe there's a sense that Kate, Catherine, and or William may feel, you know, where is this actually going? Well, it is going. Yes, they've got their children. They've produced an heir. They've produced 2 spares. You know, it's fine. But yes, the moon is void. The moon is in Pisces. I suppose when the moon is in Pisces, you know, that might represent the sort of fluidity of public opinion. But I don't want to dwell on that too much. What I do want to focus on is Venus. Venus is right on the midheaven. And you might think, well, that's great. Venus is on the midheaven, right up there. The time they are declared man and wife. Great. Venus is in Aries. Venus is in its detriment. You've got a detriment Venus on the midheaven. That suggests to me a lot of show. A lot of show, but there's a certain lack of dignity there. Might not seem apparent to anyone, and that's Venus is in Aries. It's very fiery. Venus doesn't really like being in Aries. But worse still, Venus is opposition Saturn. That is dreadful. Getting married with Venus opposition Saturn on the midheaven. Okay, Saturn is in Libra. Saturn is exalted in Saturn's exalted in Libra. So yes, and it's on right here, it's on the IC at the bottom of the chart. Yeah, sure, that gives the marriage stability. But Venus is still opposition Saturn. Venus is a universal significator of women. So Venus is in bad shape, even though it looks as if it's in good shape. Okay, I understand it is in mixed reception with the Sun. You know, Venus is in the exaltation of the Sun in Aries. The Sun is in is in Venus's sign, Taurus. So there's a mixed reception, but I don't think that's a full reception. It's not. I think it's not. If it was sign or exaltation, that might have mitigated the problem. But I don't think a mixed reception fully mitigates that problem. Venus is not in good shape. Venus I believe represents Catherine. Catherine is opposition Saturn. That does indicate a lot of what I was saying yesterday. I think that Catherine is in a bit of a she's in a bit of an emotional straitjacket here, and that's what it is. And you know, she is someone who needs to express her individuality, and she's got this. I talked about her moon in Cancer, not getting full expression. Venus opposition Saturn. Yes, it's all looking nice. She's out in, with her wedding dress and the cameras and all of that. That's Venus, but it's opposition Saturn under the surface. And you look at William. If I suppose you could say, well, if Venus is Catherine, I mean, he's the prince. He's the 10th house, isn't he? He's Mars, and she is ruler of the. If the 10th house is the prince, then the opposition house is the princess. She's on the IC, so that really is princess. He's Catherine. There he is, Jupiter in Aries, strongly positioned. Jupiter conjunct Mars. He's Mars in Aries conjunct Jupiter. So yes, he's strongly positioned, isn't he? But yes, I think that chart does really tell us how weak Catherine is, that I do think that Venus opposition Saturn, yeah, I would see it as an emotional and creative straitjacket for her. And I think that what we're seeing now with Catherine is the consequences of this. Perhaps with her illness, and perhaps what was going on with this photograph, not getting the support. I think it is starting to show. So, following on from that, what is going on in William's life? When I looked at yesterday, I looked at Catherine's chart, considering what was going on in her life. There's a lot of stuff going on. It was really clear what kind of pressures she was under. With William, it's not quite so clear. It's almost as if he's sort of drifting a bit above it all. He's part of a firm. They all know about detachment, don't they? That's very much a part of being the sort of in the royal family. So let's today. Okay, this was a chart I've just showed you for New York, but I just want to see roughly what today's planets are doing for William. There's Prince. This is just get a general picture about what is happening to William. So he has. There is his. There is his chart in the middle, and there is his. In the outer wheel is what's happening right now. South Node is on his Saturn. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? The South Node is on his Saturn at the moment. His Saturn is in Libra, but his Saturn is about him wanting to be in control. Notice that he has got in his chart Saturn square the nodal axis, so South Node is starting to hit his Saturn square the node. So Saturn square the node. So like from a sort of I don't like to use the word karmic. I really do not like to use this word karmic because it suggests that I'm in a position to know what someone's karma is, and I don't know what someone's karma is. But it does indicate that something's coming home to roost here. He's having to deal with the consequences of his position, and perhaps with the insensitivity of his position. So that is the first point to make. Another point to make is Pluto. Now, this is not really about now specifically, but right now Pluto is at 133 Aquarius. So Pluto is square his midheaven is at 228 Scorpio. His Jupiter is at 029 Scorpio. So he has had Pluto square his midheaven, and he's had Pluto. Well, Pluto is in the process of getting even closer to the square of his midheaven. So Pluto square his midheaven. Pluto is square his Jupiter. Something big is happening in William's life. It's happening perhaps under the surface. And I think perhaps with his father's cancer diagnosis, it's starting to hit him. That's what he's focusing on. He's realizing that he could be king any moment with Pluto square his midheaven. And I think there's also actually a discomfort there with his position as heir to the throne. He's not entirely comfortable with it. And Pluto is square his Jupiter. He's starting to see the impact of having Jupiter on the midheaven, which supposedly marks him out for kingship, but Pluto's here. Pluto is also square his IC, which represents the foundations of his life and his being. It represents his family. And so everything is getting stirred up by Pluto. Something else is going on is Neptune. And Neptune is at 2715 Pisces at the moment. William's ascendant is 2730 Sagittarius. And of course, he's got Neptune rising. So he has got Neptune square his ascendant. Neptune sort of close to the bottom of the chart, squaring his ascendant. There's real uncertainty there. I don't think he knows what's going on at some level. And I think there could be a certain amount of delusion and self-delusion, because Neptune, given the fact that he's got Neptune rising, what I'm thinking with William, what I'm thinking right now is that I'm wondering how mature he is. I mean, he's supposed to be mature. He seems to be sensible. He seems to be actually quite boringly sensible. But I'm wondering about his maturity. Particularly in light of that article in the Daily. Okay, I know it's the Daily Mail, but suggesting this ungentlemanly conduct. But there's something. Yeah, I do think with that Neptune square ascendant, some immaturity is sort of creeping in there. Perhaps we're seeing a side of William that, well, maybe you have seen it. But I mean, I was just focusing on just William. He seemed to be doing a solid job. I don't know, whatever. But we're starting to see a different picture here, I think. Another planet that I think we really need to concentrate on is Uranus. You can see that Uranus is at 20 degrees Taurus at the moment. But the thing is, Uranus is transiting Uranus is moving towards a conjunction with his Venus-Chiron conjunction. I've said that he's got Venus conjunct Algol conjunct Chiron. I think that Venus conjunct Chiron in Taurus represents Catherine. I really do feel that way. Uranus is moving towards a conjunction with Venus. That conjunction becomes exact, to be precise, when is it becomes precise? I think it looks like end of June. So it's possibly not going to get any better. I think he's going to have more stuff to deal with. And in fact, there's a point in July when there is a Venus-Uranus conjunction on Algol, which happens mid-July. So mid-July, Mars and Uranus are conjunct William's conjunct William's Venus-Chiron conjunction. So that is something to really watch out for. I think William, I don't know, I feel he needs to grow up somehow. I don't know about you. But those are some of the transits. And I wanted to actually go back to the marriage chart, because there are a couple of points about the marriage chart that I just didn't cover. There are some interesting coincidences about this marriage chart. Firstly, the ascendant is at 5 degrees 9 minutes Leo. That's what I make it as if you go for 11:20 a.m. His father's ascendant is 5 degrees 24 Leo. In other words, the ascendant at 11:20, when they were declared man and wife, was the same as Charles's ascendant. And also, Camilla's ascendant is 4 degrees 54 Leo. So the ascendant was, because Charles and Camilla have their ascendant in exactly the same place. So the point of that time of that marriage, assuming the Guardian is correct, to say they were declared husband and wife at 11:20. At the time of the marriage, that ascendant was being picked up by both Camilla and Charles's ascendants. And there's another thing about that ascendant, which perhaps gives us a sense of timing. On January the 25th of this year, there was, I think it was January the 25th, on January the 25th, there was a full moon at 5 degrees Leo. So there was a full moon on January the 25th of this year on the ascendant of their marriage. It was also on Charles's ascendant. It was also on Camilla's ascendant. And so maybe that full moon really did something to their marriage. We're not seeing it at the moment, but you know, there does perhaps seem to be there does seem to have been something going on. Okay, I want to look at a couple of other charts. This was Prince William's solar return for 2023. This is when the sun returned to where it was born, where it was when he was born, for his last birthday. So this solar return would cover his birthday from June 21st, 23 to June the 21st, 2024. What I find interesting about this chart is Neptune on the IC. So Neptune is prominent there because it's on the IC. Now, normally that wouldn't be a big deal, except for the fact that Neptune is right squaring William's ascendant. And also because William has Neptune rising, he's going to be particularly sensitive to having Neptune angular in a solar return chart. So that suggests that his year from June the 21st, 2023 is pretty chaotic, and it's just very difficult for him to hold everything together with that Neptune. Another point about this solar return chart is there is a Venus-Mars conjunction. Okay, that's fine. Venus-Mars, all about charisma and attractiveness, but we can look at it in another way. Late Scorpio is rising, so maybe Mars represents William, and maybe Venus represents Catherine, like the marriage chart. And so Venus and Mars are coming together. Now you could say, oh, well, that's good, they're coming together. But Mars is a malefic. Mars is quite an angry male energy. So with Venus moving to Mars, Mars may actually damage Venus. And so maybe that Venus-Mars conjunction is actually hinting at some of the problems that are about to happen, especially as that Venus-Mars conjunction is approaching the square to Uranus, and that may be a warning about what was going to transpire the following year in 2024. Another approach I can use is to use solar arc directions. So I'm going to the idea of solar arc directions is that you move everything 1 degree for a year. So 1 degree is 1 year. So you move the planets so if you want to know what's happening to William when he's 42, for example, you move all the planets 42 degrees. So if we look at William's solar arc directions, so there are his solar arc directions, and then we see what is happening from a solar arc perspective. And what I want to focus on is solar arc directed Saturn. You can see he's got solar arc directed Saturn at 25 degrees 20 Scorpio. In other words, solar arc-directed Saturn is opposition his Venus. Remember, Venus in Taurus, conjunct Chiron, conjunct Caput Algol. Saturn opposition Venus at a time when Uranus is moving towards the conjunction of transiting Venus is happening. So that's in June, and July we get the Mars-Saturn conjunction. So I would that although that Saturn opposition Venus is technically past, these solar arc directions, they do hang around for a bit, 6 months, a year maybe, and so I think that solar arc directed Saturn, it's hitting his Venus, which means basically it's hitting Catherine. So solar arc directions, that particular solar arc direction is worrying. Remember, we don't look at it in isolation. We need to get some other evidence, and we get that evidence from the Uranus transit, which happens in June. Uranus conjunct his Venus. Finally, I want to look at his secondary progressions. So if I've got these are his secondary progressions. When we move, this is just looking at the positions of the planets on August the 2nd, 1982, which was around 42 years after he was born. Just a sort of final check. What do we find? Right now his secondary progressed moon is on his south node. If that's indicating that, like, from an emotional perspective, he is maybe not handling things correctly. He's using his line of least resistance, south node in Capricorn. So emotionally, he's behaving I think in quite a Capricorn way. His secondary progressed moon in Capricorn, he's thinking about himself. He's not really thinking, he's thinking about Kate a bit, but I think he's really thinking about his own interests. And I think that kind of is supportive of the argument, perhaps, the view that was put forward in the Daily Mail article. So from a psychological perspective, the secondary progressions, I think do support that. Also, look at secondary progressed Mars is at 2928. So progressed Mars is about to cross his midheaven. As soon as Mars goes into Scorpio, it will conjunct his Jupiter. Then a couple of years later, it will go cross his midheaven. So with Mars about to hit his Jupiter, I think it's perhaps issues with kingship again, having to deal with the fact that he is going to be king. I don't really want to speculate too much about that, but I think perhaps from a psychological perspective, I think what's really important is the fact that right now his progressed moon is conjunct his south node, and it's in Capricorn. So I think that selfishness that is perhaps is something that should have been from the past, that Prince William should have grown out of. The progressed moon in Capricorn is perhaps bringing this selfishness back into focus. Okay, that's all I'm going to say on William. I don't really feel I have quite the same handle on it as I had with Catherine, but I do think the astrology of the situation and the astrology of William is perhaps seeing him in a different light, and I just do get this feeling that William perhaps needs to grow up. He's not as mature and sensible and kingly as kingly. People can be ghastly if they're kingly, can't they? But he doesn't really seem to be fully living up to his moral responsibilities, and I think that is indicated by by the charts. And also I think the marriage chart, Venus opposition Saturn, plus William's Venus conjunct Algol, there is that, with that Venus conjunct Algol, there is, I know that Catherine is very different from Diana, from her mother-in-law, but there's almost pressure on her to become like her mother-in-law, like Diana, and that pressure is maybe coming from William's own chart, from that Venus conjunct Algol conjunct Chiron. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Again, as I said at the beginning, if you enjoyed this video and you're not subscribed, I would be very grateful if you were to subscribe. Of course, I'd be grateful if you were to like this video. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.